For my programming class, we were tasked with making a game from scratch. So in this devlog, you'll see how we went from this to this. Hi, my name is the Story Nerd, and this is Story Nerd Studios. I'm currently working on a Souls-like RPG called The Descent that you can wishlist right now, link in the description. But today, this is the making of Swiftly Delivered. I made the idle animation as well as the running animations and got straight to work. Obviously, I wanted to make this a platformer since working on The Descent has sucked all of the top-down mojo out of me. I used Sonic the Hedgehog as the inspiration for the gameplay, enforcing the momentum mechanics I want to implement it. I'm not going to go too in-depth on how the momentum works, but I will say that there were a few features I added to make everything a little nicer. There's ground friction, air friction, and ice friction, all of which are applied if you're not trying to move. There's also two different gravities, one for moving upwards and another for falling. You fall faster than you rise up. And even though it's slight, it helps a lot with the feel of a jump, which sounds ridiculous. You'd think a straightforward, even gravity both ways would be way more predictable, but no. Anyways, jumping and collisions are in, and I started implementing the slide as well, which basically slowly decelerates you unless you slide into smaller gaps. Got some running and sliding particle effects, and already the player is looking pretty promising. First, I made an ice platform spell, which allows the player to make a small platform beneath your feet that breaks the longer you stand on it. Next was the ice wall spell. This spell creates a wall of ice in front of the player that covers the ground in ice as it slides. This one changed a lot through development, with me eventually shrinking it down to the hole. Now, I took a break from making the magics to tamper with the camera a bit. You see, I watch a lot of YouTube in my free time, and a lot of those YouTubers being Sonic Tubers. Shout out to Scully, the GOAT. One of the most common complaints I hear about classic Sonic games is that the camera borders are usually too close to Sonic, making it hard to react properly. This is especially a problem in games like Sonic Advance. So, to fix this for my game, I made the camera a little more adaptive, with it doing its best to stay in front of the player in whichever direction they're facing. Back to the magic though, I made a flying frost ability, sort of like how Iron Man flies. You shoot particles out from your hands and shoot up a bit, and slowly descend. Feels very, very nice. And lastly, the avalanche, where the player crashes down to the floor. After the avalanche, the player gets frozen in this pose until they try to move. If they go for a jump, they jump higher than usual. If they go for a slide, they slide further than usual. And if they just try to run, they get an instant burst of speed. I'm hoping this will add some speed tech to the game, for speedrunners. I added slimes that bounce the player up into the air or sideways. If you watch the devlog I made for the Game Maker's Toolkit Game Jam in 2023, you might recognize these little guys from the game I made alongside Dovey Sketch. Their function is exactly the same. Speaking of that game jam, I also took the tile set that I made for that game and just plopped it in here. The one thing that our professor said we could do was just reuse any art, and I didn't have time to make all the art. And even though I made a lot of the animations and enemies from scratch, I didn't really have time to make a whole tile set from scratch. So that's why this is here. I also made the enemy at this time. This little goblin dude will knock the coins right out of you. Oh yeah, I added coins. And lastly, possibly the feature that gave me the most headaches, one-way platforms. I tried many different ways to get this going, but by the end, the only way I could get it is by completely disabling the collision when the player's Y coordinate was past the top of the one-way. Those are all the core mechanics, so now let's get to the level design. I took the time to research first levels all across the world, or just Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario Bros. More specifically though, I repeatedly played through the first level of Sonic Mania several hundred times to get a feel for what a good introductory level would feel like. Also, that was just the only Sonic game that I had on my laptop that was good to go, and the only really good platformer game that I had that was also just ready to go. So, you do what you can. The main things I took away from it were 1, the multiple routes, 2, the chance for speed and exploration, and then 3, nothing, actually. That's kind of where I stopped researching. After many iterations and small tweaks, I had the final level, more or less. I tossed in some UI for the coin, score, and the timer that ticks up each second that passes. Oh, and a little orb thing that shows whether or not the player can use another spell yet or not. A little more UI for beating the level, which tallies up your score, along with a quick tutorial screen, and the game is done. A fully playable, speed-focused action platformer done for my class. My classmates and professor loved it, which made me feel really good because all I saw at this point were errors. Some of the animations are inconsistent. My game sucks. Why does the score for the timer sucks? Why does it suck so much? It looks like shit. Despite my thoughts though, I wasn't gonna fight the 100 my professor gave me on the project. I gave the game over to Ricepuff, who gave me some great feedback after he spent over 30 minutes playing this game. He gave me some great feedback and where they can improve the game. Too bad I was done with the game and there's no chance I'll ever return to it. Unless...